Imagine walking into a room where every conversation stops, not because you shouted, not because you demanded attention, but because the air around you shifts. People sense something before you even speak. They don't know why their eyes track you, why their voices falter, why they second-guess themselves in your presence. This is not luck, and it's not charisma in the shallow sense. It is something rarer, something forged deliberately, the art of a mind that refuses to kneel. And most men, whether they realize it or not, have spent their lives learning how to kneel. The world does not reward the loudest. It does not reward the kindest. It rewards the most certain. Certainty is gravity, and human beings orbit around it. The weak orbit the strong, the unsure orbit the unshakable, and the lost orbit whoever appears to know the way. You don't need to be right. You need to look as if doubt cannot touch you. But doubt lives in nearly everyone. It corrodes their decisions, it stains their voice, it eats holes in their presence. And if you hesitate, if you second-guess, you announce to the world that you can be led, molded, and overpowered. Think of every time you waited for the right moment. Every time you rehearsed what to say, but never spoke. Every time you convinced yourself you weren't ready yet. Those moments didn't disappear. They were claimed by someone else, someone less intelligent, less prepared, less capable than you. But they acted, and the world gave them what you thought about earning. That is how hesitation kills. You have been trained in hesitation since childhood. Schools, families, systems, they don't want dangerous men. They don't want sharp minds with strong spines. They want obedient workers, compliant students, agreeable citizens. They teach you to ask permission, to soften your words, to justify your actions. You were rewarded not for speaking with clarity, but for speaking in the way they wanted. You were punished not for being wrong, but for being defiant. Slowly, year after year, the spine bends. Until one day you apologize before you even know why. Until one day you flinch when you should strike. The tragedy is not that you are weak. The tragedy is that you were strong, and that strength was trained out of you. What you call your personality is often just the residue of survival. The boy who wanted to roar was told to whisper. The child who wanted to challenge was told to sit down. The man who wanted to stand alone was told he needed to belong. And so he learned how to shrink himself. He learned how to blend. He learned how to be chosen instead of choosing. That is not you. That is the servant living inside you. The servant apologizes before speaking. The servant explains what doesn't need explanation. The servant smiles too wide, nods too often, and speaks as if begging for approval. You see him in others all the time. The desperate laugh, the anxious eyes, the constant self-correction. But if you are honest, you see him in yourself too. And until you kill him, you will never stand tall. Killing the servant doesn't mean becoming cruel. It doesn't mean shouting over others or flexing fake bravado. It means refusing to shrink. It means letting your presence announce itself before your words do. It means walking into every room as if you belong, not because they invited you, but because you chose to step inside. This kind of confidence is not born, it is built. And the first step in building it is inversion. Every habit you've learned is designed to make you small. Inversion is choosing the opposite. When you want to rush, you slow down. When you want to explain, you stop. When you want to apologize, you hold silence. When your body tells you to shrink, you expand. This rewires the nervous system. It retrains the mind to act not from fear, but from command. Dangerous confidence is not readiness. It is motion. It is choosing to act when your stomach twists, when your chest tightens, when the voice in your head begs you to wait. Consider this. The lion doesn't wait until it feels confident to hunt. It hunts, and in the act, confidence is generated. You are waiting for a feeling that only arrives after action. That is why hesitation is a trap with no exit. Action first, certainty second. Walk faster, stand taller, speak as if your words are final. You don't ask if the room agrees. You state, and let the silence that follows belong to you. Because silence is a weapon. Most people are terrified of it. They rush to fill it with nervous chatter, endless explanations, fragile jokes. They mistake noise for connection. But the man who can hold silence bends the atmosphere around him. He does not explain. He does not fidget. He simply lets the weight of his presence linger. In that silence, others project meaning. They imagine confidence, intelligence, authority, and they are rarely wrong, because the man who controls silence controls the pace of the interaction. This is why presence matters more than words. A speech can impress, but presence commands. Presence is not posture alone, though posture is part of it. Presence is the refusal to be rushed, the refusal to be small, the refusal to break eye contact first. Presence is carrying yourself as if you are the axis around which the room turns. It is subtle, but devastating, because people sense hierarchy instinctively, and presence is how you climb it without announcing it. When you speak, your voice must sound like the end, not the beginning. No tentative words, no fillers, no apologies dressed as politeness. You do not need, I think, or maybe, or sorry but. Every time you use them, you erode your own authority. Speak slowly, lower your tone, remove excess. A simple sentence spoken with weight carries more power than a speech soaked in uncertainty. If challenged, you do not scramble to defend. You redirect. You dismiss. A single phrase, "That's not correct," delivered calmly, does more than paragraphs of justification. This does not make you untouchable yet, because as long as others can control your emotions, you remain vulnerable. The true fortress is inside. If someone can insult you and make you lash out, they own you. If someone can flatter you and make you chase, they own you. If someone can ignore you and make you panic, they own you. Mastery begins when you detach your reactions from their hands. You observe insult without flinching. You hear praise without needing more. You face rejection without collapse. That is the emotional fortress. And rejection, perhaps the most feared experience, is nothing but information. When someone says no, they are revealing the limits of their desire, the shape of their need, the boundary of what they can endure without you. Why would you fear that? They have given you data. Withdraw quietly. Let them feel your absence. Let them discover whether the void matters more than their pride. If it does, they will return. If it does not, they were never worth your energy. Either way, you win. You will not always win by force. Sometimes you win by vanishing. Sometimes the most powerful statement is no statement at all. To retreat without complaint, to disappear without bitterness, to walk away without looking back. This unnerves people more than anger ever could, because anger is still attachment. Silence is freedom, and when you return, you do not return with noise. You return with undeniable proof of growth. The body sharper, the mind colder, the presence heavier. You let results, not explanations, declare your evolution. What emerges after this process is not a mask. It is not an act you put on when needed. It is identity. You stop playing the role of the agreeable man, the explainable man, the apologetic man. You begin to move as if the world bends around you, not because you force it, but because you no longer bend for it. That is untouchable. That is the man who belongs to no one, and for that reason, cannot be controlled. You are not meant to live bent under invisible weight, yet most men do. They carry the weight of judgment, of imagined disapproval, of voices that do not even exist outside their own minds. Before they act, they rehearse the reactions of others. Before they speak, they edit themselves to sound more acceptable. Before they decide, they ask permission without even realizing it. This invisible leash is stronger than chains of iron because the prisoner polices himself. And the world applauds this obedience, calls it humility, calls it politeness, calls it being civilized. But in truth it is nothing but learned weakness disguised as virtue. You have been told your whole life that strength is dangerous, that certainty is arrogance, that pride is sin. But what has weakness bought you? What rewards has hesitation ever delivered? The humble worker dies forgotten. The agreeable man is discarded the moment he stops being useful. The endlessly polite man is remembered only as a shadow who offended no one because he inspired no one. Weakness does not buy you safety. It only guarantees that no one notices when you vanish. Think of the men history remembers. They were not polite in the way society asks you to be. They were not soft. They did not hesitate to claim space, to speak with force, to risk being hated. Socrates refused to stop questioning even when threatened with death. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor, wrote reminders to himself to never bow to fear or the opinions of the crowd. Nietzsche shattered tradition with words that still cut like blades. These men were not tolerated because they were agreeable. They were remembered because they stood against the tide. And yet here you are, trained to drown in that tide. You say yes when you mean no. You stay silent when truth burns inside you. You dress yourself in masks to be acceptable to those who do not even respect themselves. This is not survival. This is surrender. And it happens so slowly you do not even see the walls of the cage closing in. Every apology you did not need to make is a brick. Every compromise that shrank your spirit is another. One day you wake up and realize you are a man constructed by the expectations of others. A servant wearing your face. But the cage has cracks. The cracks appear in moments when your true self pushes against the walls. When you wanted to speak, but didn't. When you wanted to stand tall, but chose to bend. When you walked away from opportunity because you told yourself you weren't ready. Those moments haunt you because they reveal the truth, that the cage is not natural, that the servant inside you is not who you were meant to be. You must become a heretic to the training you've received. You must betray the lessons that made you small. Stop rehearsing obedience. Stop softening your edges. Stop seeking safety in the approval of others. What you call fear is not danger, it is conditioning. Your mind was wired to see risk where none exists. You are not afraid of speaking truth. You are afraid of breaking programming. But only by breaking it can you return to the man you were meant to be. There is a reason silence unsettles people. It is because most men cannot survive without constant approval. They need feedback, they need nods, they need smiles, they need someone to say they are enough. Silence gives them nothing. It starves them of validation, and in that starvation, they crumble. But when you learn to live in silence, when you stop seeking that validation, you become unshakable. You no longer beg for connection. You no longer plead for acceptance. You stand. And if the world cannot understand you, that is their weakness, not yours. This is why people fear the man who walks alone. He has betrayed the system. He has no leash around his neck. You cannot bribe him with flattery. You cannot shame him with rejection. You cannot move him with disapproval. He has seen through the game. His silence is not emptiness, it is power. His solitude is not weakness, it is sovereignty. And sovereignty terrifies those who were taught only to obey. Do not mistake this for arrogance. Arrogance is still dependence, for the arrogant man needs others to see him, to envy him, to confirm his superiority. True sovereignty is different. It does not need the crowd at all. It does not seek to prove. It simply is. The man who no longer bends does not announce his strength, he embodies it. The world bends around him because it has no other choice. You will feel resistance when you begin to unlearn weakness. The servant inside you will panic. He will whisper that you are being rude, that you are being too much, that people will not like you. That voice is not your conscience. That voice is your conditioning, begging you not to break the chains. You must ignore it. Each time you refuse to apologize unnecessarily, each time you hold eye contact instead of looking away, each time you speak with clarity instead of softening your truth, you kill the servant a little more. The death of the servant is the birth of the master. And mastery is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It is felt. It is the way people pause when you enter. It is the way they measure their words around you. It is the way silence follows you like a cloak. True mastery is the ability to command without raising your voice, to dominate without lifting a hand, to win without needing to fight. But to reach this state, you must endure rejection. You must accept that not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will approve of you. Not everyone will like you. That is not failure. That is proof that you are no longer bending to please. Rejection will sting at first, because the servant inside you still aches for approval. But over time you will see rejection for what it is, information. It shows you who is aligned with your truth and who is not. And those who are not, you let them go. The paradox is that when you stop needing approval, you attract respect. When you stop chasing connection, people seek your presence. When you no longer bend to be chosen, you become the one who chooses. This is the inversion of power. The same qualities that once made you invisible now make you magnetic. Not because you sought it, but because certainty is irresistible in a world drowning in doubt. Most men live as echoes. They repeat what they are told. They mimic what is safe. They shape themselves into reflections of what others want. To stop being an echo is to become a voice. A singular tone that does not blend, does not fade, does not ask permission to exist. And once you become that voice, the world cannot help but listen. You were trained to be a shadow, but shadows vanish when light fades. Be the source, not the reflection. Speak with the weight of someone who no longer fears silence. Move with the gravity of someone who no longer seeks permission. Stand with the certainty of someone who has killed the servant and claimed the master's throne. Then you will see the cage for what it always was, a trick of the mind, a prison with an open door. And you will walk out, not as the man they wanted you to be, but as the man you were always meant to become. Power often hides itself in plain sight. It does not shout. It does not plead. It does not explain. It simply exists, and others adjust themselves to it. The man who understands this truth has discovered the oldest weapon of all, presence. A presence that bends the air when he enters a room, not because he demands attention, but because he carries within him a gravity that cannot be ignored. And yet, most people spend their lives trying to buy this gravity with noise. They talk too much, laugh too loudly, decorate themselves with borrowed identities, all in the hope that someone will notice them. But true presence is not purchased by noise. It is carved in silence. You must understand that silence is not emptiness. It is a canvas upon which power paints itself. The one who can remain silent when provoked is not weak. He is a fortress. His silence forces others to wrestle with themselves. They project, they panic, they interpret. Their own minds betray them. Meanwhile, the silent man reveals nothing. He makes others show their cards while keeping his own hidden. In arguments, in negotiations, in confrontations, this is the sharpest edge you can wield, the weapon of not rushing to fill the space. People underestimate silence because they cannot bear it. They feel the pressure of quiet like a storm in the chest. Their need to speak becomes desperation, and in that desperation, they reveal their fears, their insecurities, their strategies. The silent man, unmoved, simply watches. And in that stillness, he becomes the mirror that exposes all. Understand this well. Silence is not passive. It is aggressive restraint. It is the refusal to dance to the rhythm others try to impose. It is the calm that unsettles, because calm cannot be manipulated. Watch how predators move. The lion does not roar before the hunt. He stalks. He observes. He waits in stillness until the exact moment the strike is inevitable. That is the essence of power, the patient silence before action. You must learn to embody this if you wish to rule yourself and command respect from others. Speak less, observe more. Move less, calculate more. Do not announce your intentions. Let others reveal theirs. In this way, you conserve energy while they exhaust themselves in frantic attempts to understand you. But presence is not only silence. It is how you inhabit your body, how you claim space without apology. Most people shrink. They fold their shoulders, avert their eyes, step aside unnecessarily. They apologize with their posture. Every gesture whispers, "I do not deserve this space." And the world listens. The world treats you as you treat yourself. If you move as though you belong nowhere, nowhere will welcome you. If you move as though you belong everywhere, the world adjusts to accommodate you. Presence is the unspoken declaration that you are allowed to exist fully without permission. There is a kind of power that comes from not rushing. Notice how the desperate man speaks quickly, acts impulsively, chases every opportunity as though it might be his last. Desperation reeks, and people can smell it. It pushes them away. But the man who is deliberate, who pauses before answering, who moves slowly as though time itself bends to his will, that man intoxicates those around him. He radiates the energy of abundance. His slowness whispers, "I have options. I am not hurried. I am not controlled." And people will believe him, even if he has nothing. Because presence is not about possessions, it is about perception. Consider the way kings sit upon thrones, elevated, motionless, watching as others move nervously before them. The throne is not what gives them presence. It is their ability to embody stillness while others tremble. You must learn to create your own throne wherever you go. Stand with weight, sit with calm, move with purpose. Let others fidget, let others stumble over words, let others scramble for approval. You remain the unmoving center around which their chaos revolves. The mistake weak men make is to confuse presence with performance. They try to act confident, to imitate strength, to wear the mask of dominance. But masks slip. The moment they are challenged, their performance collapses. True presence is not an act. It comes from within, from a core that has been forged through rejection, solitude, and struggle. It cannot be faked because it is not built for the eyes of others. It is built for yourself. When you no longer need to perform, you no longer fear being exposed. When you no longer need to prove, you no longer fear being doubted. And that is when your presence becomes undeniable. You will notice something strange once you cultivate this presence. People will begin to fill the silence around you with their secrets. They will talk more, reveal more, confess more, simply because your stillness pressures them. They will interpret your quiet as wisdom, your pause as depth, your gaze as insight. In truth, you are simply allowing them the space to show themselves. And they will. Because most people are desperate to be seen, to be understood, to be validated. When you do not rush to interrupt with your own story, they feel compelled to give you theirs. And in doing so, they hand you the map of their minds. This is psychological warfare in its purest form. The ability to learn without exposing, to extract without offering, to lead without commanding. People believe they are controlling the interaction, when in reality, you have set the frame by refusing to be moved. The loud man thinks he has power because his voice dominates the room. But his noise only betrays his need to be acknowledged. The truly powerful man does not need to be acknowledged. His very existence demands it. To wield this weapon, you must train yourself to be comfortable in the discomfort that silences others. When a pause grows long, resist the urge to break it. When someone expects a quick answer, delay. When tension builds, hold it instead of releasing it. These moments will feel unbearable at first. Your conditioning will scream at you to speak, to laugh, to fill the void. But if you endure, you will see what happens. The other person cracks before you do. They rush to ease the pressure, and in doing so, they yield control. The one who controls the pace controls the interaction. Presence also extends to your words when you choose to use them. Speak less, but with weight. Do not waste words on chatter or justification. Each time you explain yourself unnecessarily, you bleed authority. Each time you overshare, you hand over your advantage. Words should be like currency, rare, valuable, measured. The fewer you spend, the more each one is worth. The man who speaks endlessly cheapens himself. The man who speaks sparingly makes others lean in to catch every syllable. Understand this. Most of the noise in the world is meaningless. Endless opinions, endless arguments, endless explanations. All of it dissolves into static. But the rare voice that cuts through silence commands attention. That is what you must aim to become. Not another echo in the endless chatter, but the singular tone that silences the room. The transformation into this kind of presence will not be easy. At first, people will test you. They will mistake your silence for weakness, your slowness for hesitation, your calm for uncertainty. Do not defend yourself. Do not explain. Endure the misunderstanding. Over time, the truth will reveal itself. They will realize that your silence is deliberate, your calm is strength, your slowness is control. And when they realize it, respect will replace doubt. This is the paradox of presence. You must be willing to be misunderstood before you can be revered. Weak men cannot bear to be misunderstood. They rush to clarify, to prove themselves, to correct every misinterpretation. In doing so, they prove their dependence on the opinions of others. But the man of presence lets misunderstandings sit. He lets others project whatever they wish. He knows that in the end, reality cannot be hidden. The truth of his strength will reveal itself without his interference. Do not fear being seen as cold, distant, or intimidating. These are the shadows cast by presence. They are signs that you no longer beg for warmth, that you no longer chase approval, that you no longer soften yourself for the comfort of others. The man who is feared is often more respected than the man who is liked, and respect endures where approval fades. When you master silence, when you claim space without apology, when you slow your movements to a sovereign rhythm, you will begin to notice a shift. People will defer to you without understanding why. They will measure their words. They will seek your approval. They will grant you authority you did not ask for. That is the power of presence. It is invisible, intangible, yet undeniable. It is not built in a day, but it is built in every moment you refuse to shrink, every silence you refuse to fill, every apology you refuse to offer. Become the man whose quiet unsettles, whose stillness dominates, whose presence bends the air. For in a world drowning in noise, the silent man is king. Rejection is the word that terrifies most people, yet it is nothing more than the universe whispering truth. And the truth is simple. Not everyone will accept you. Not everyone will admire you. Not everyone will want you in their circle. Weak men crumble under this truth because they have been trained to equate rejection with death. To them, a frown is annihilation, I know, is humiliation. A closed door is the collapse of their worth. They would rather live 1,000 small lies than face one honest refusal. But what they do not realize is that rejection is not the end of strength. It is the beginning of it. When you are rejected, the illusions fall away. You see the limits of someone's acceptance, the edges of their world, the borders of their loyalty. You see who they are without the mask of politeness. And in seeing that, you are given the gift of clarity. Most men never receive this gift because they never risk themselves enough to be rejected. They remain in the shallow waters of compromise, where nothing is risked, nothing is lost, and nothing is gained. They are safe, but their safety is a coffin. The fear of rejection is the leash that keeps people tame. It makes them soften their words, bend their backs, hide their desires, swallow their truths. They believe that if they can avoid rejection, they will be loved. But love built on performance is not love. It is slavery. If you must mutilate yourself to be accepted, then you are not accepted at all. You are merely tolerated, like a servant who plays his part well enough to avoid punishment. And what kind of life is that? To live as a shadow of yourself, just to avoid someone else's disapproval? You must learn to invert rejection. Instead of fearing it, you must desire it. Each rejection is proof that you are no longer bending to fit a mold. Each rejection is a signpost that you have stepped outside the herd. Every time someone walks away from you because you spoke truth, because you stood firm, because you refused to bow, you should feel not shame, but confirmation. For every person who cannot stand beside you, another will find you because of your strength. And those who remain will be aligned not with your mask, but with your essence. Rejection is not failure. Rejection is refinement. It burns away what is not for you, leaving only what is. Imagine a sculptor striking stone with his chisel. Each strike removes a piece that does not belong, until only the form of truth remains. That is what rejection does to you. Every no you endure carves you closer to the man you were meant to be. Every door that closes tightens your path until it points like an arrow to your destiny. The problem is not rejection. The problem is your interpretation of it. Do you not see? The man who cannot bear rejection cannot bear life itself. For life rejects you constantly. The weather rejects your plans. The market rejects your efforts. The world rejects your expectations. If you collapse every time reality refuses you, you will spend your existence crawling on your knees. But if you learn to stand inside rejection, if you can meet no with unflinching eyes, then suddenly rejection becomes power. It becomes information. It becomes freedom. Consider the history of great men. Were they embraced by the masses? Rarely. More often, they were ridiculed, resisted, silenced. Galileo was rejected by the church. Van Gogh was rejected by the art world. Nietzsche was rejected by the academy. Yet their truths outlived the rejection. Their strength was not in being accepted, but in refusing to bend when they were denied. Rejection was their crucible, and the fire of that crucible burned away weakness, leaving only the steel of conviction. If you wish to be strong, you must not merely survive rejection. You must hunt it. You must seek out the edges where your truth will not be welcomed. Speak when silence is demanded. Stand firm when bending would be easier. Refuse when yes would buy you safety. Each time you do this, you will face rejection, and each time you face it, you will grow less dependent on the approval of others. Until finally, rejection loses its sting. It becomes nothing more than weather. Inconvenient, sometimes harsh, but never fatal. There is a deeper layer still. Rejection is the forge of identity. When you are denied, you are forced to ask, what is left of me when they do not choose me? Who am I without their approval? These are terrifying questions for the man who has built his life on pleasing others. Without approval, he is nothing. Without validation, he is dust. But the man who has rooted himself in truth discovers something different. When rejection strips away all the masks, he is left not with nothing, but with everything. For what remains is real, unshakable, undeniable. The irony is that the man who embraces rejection often becomes the one most desired. Why? Because he no longer chases. He no longer bends. He no longer begs. And people are drawn to what they cannot control. They sense his independence, his refusal to compromise, his ability to stand alone. And they want to stand beside him because strength is magnetic. The more you fear rejection, the more you chase acceptance, and the more you are repelled. The more you embrace rejection, the more acceptance comes to you unbidden. This is the inversion of power. Do not misunderstand. Embracing rejection does not mean seeking conflict for its own sake, nor does it mean celebrating cruelty. It means holding yourself to a standard higher than the comfort of others. It means valuing truth more than harmony, authenticity more than approval, integrity more than applause. If this makes you enemies, so be it. Better to be hated for what you are than loved for what you are not. You must also learn to reject. Rejection is not only what you endure, but what you deliver. Weak men accept everything. They accept poor treatment, empty promises, shallow opportunities. They accept because they fear saying no. But the man of strength rejects without hesitation. He rejects distractions that waste his time, people who drain his energy, offers that insult his worth. Each rejection is a declaration, I will not be owned. I will not be cheapened. I will not be less than I am. To reject is to guard your sovereignty. Think of the kings of old. Did they accept every visitor, every request, every plea? No. Their power was measured in the weight of their rejection. Their throne was elevated not by what they allowed, but by what they denied. You must build your own throne the same way. Learn the art of refusal. Practice the discipline of no. Understand that every yes to what is unworthy is a no to yourself. And if you betray yourself often enough, you will eventually have nothing left to betray. Resilience is born in this furnace. Not the resilience of mere survival, but the resilience of sovereignty. When you no longer fear rejection, you can no longer be broken by it. When you no longer chase approval, you can no longer be manipulated by it. When you no longer bend for acceptance, you can no longer be discarded when it is withdrawn. You become untouchable, not because you are invincible, but because you have made peace with loss. Loss is inevitable. People will leave. Opportunities will vanish. Doors will close. To live is to lose. But most people cling to what is slipping away, as if their clinging could stop time itself. They cling to relationships long dead. They cling to identities long outdated. They cling to approval long withdrawn. And in their clinging, they suffer. But the man of resilience does not cling. He releases. He allows loss to carve him. He understands that what leaves him was never truly his to begin with. And so he walks lighter with every departure, stronger with every denial, freer with every rejection. Identity is not built in comfort. It is built in fire. Each rejection, each loss, each departure forces you to decide, who am I without this? And each time you answer, you carve your identity deeper. Until one day, you no longer fear losing anything, because you know nothing external defines you. Your identity is internal, unmovable, beyond reach. That is the essence of sovereignty. The world will tell you otherwise. It will tell you that your identity is your job, your reputation, your relationships, your possessions. But all of these can be taken in a moment. What then? Who are you when stripped of all masks, all roles, all labels? That is the question rejection forces you to face. And if you can answer it without trembling, then you have become the rarest of men. Most men die never knowing who they are. They die as roles, as reflections, as echoes. But you have the chance to die as yourself. If you are willing to endure the pain of rejection, if you are willing to let it strip you bare, if you are willing to face the abyss and stand unshaken. That is the price of true identity. And it is a price worth paying. For what you gain cannot be taken by any hand, broken by any betrayal, or silenced by any refusal. So embrace rejection. Seek it. Deliver it. Let it forge you. Let it refine you. Let it strip away all that is false, until only the unshakable remains. For the man who has mastered rejection has mastered himself. And the man who has mastered himself cannot be broken by the world. Transformation is not a single moment, but a slow death of who you were and a gradual birth of who you must become. And yet, when it finally settles upon you, it feels sudden, as if the world shifted in an instant. One day you were begging for scraps of attention, and the next you are sovereign, needing nothing, commanding everything. That is the paradox of becoming untouchable. The process is brutal, drawn out, filled with cuts and losses and silences. But when you emerge, the world does not see the struggle, it only sees the result. Becoming untouchable does not mean you are beyond harm. It means harm no longer defines you. Pain no longer dictates your choices. Loss no longer cripples your identity. You are touched by these things, yes, but you are not owned by them. This is the highest state a human can reach, to walk through the world unshielded, knowing arrows will come, knowing storms will rage, but holding steady, because nothing external determines your worth. To reach this state, you must abandon the illusions that hold most men captive. The first illusion is that life should be fair. It will not be. Men weaker than you will rise higher. Men more dishonest will gather wealth. Men more cowardly will be praised. If you believe fairness is your birthright, you will spend your days in bitterness, chained to resentment. But if you accept that fairness is a dream for children, you become free. You no longer demand the world bend to you. You bend reality with your strength instead. The second illusion is that happiness is the goal. Happiness is a fleeting sensation, a chemical whisper that comes and goes like weather. To chase it is to chase the wind. Power, purpose, resilience, these are not dependent on happiness. In fact, the pursuit of happiness often weakens men, for they sacrifice struggle, growth, and truth in its name. You must understand, fulfillment is greater than happiness. Fulfillment is forged in effort, in discipline, in the pursuit of what outlasts you. Happiness visits, but fulfillment stays. Chase fulfillment, and happiness will appear as a shadow. Chase happiness, and fulfillment will vanish. The third illusion is that love or approval will complete you. This is the most dangerous lie of all. It is the lie that keeps men crawling on their knees, begging to be chosen. They believe another person's gaze can make them whole. But if you are not whole within yourself, no one can complete you. They can only distract you from your emptiness for a time. And when they leave, you will be emptier still. You must be willing to walk alone, to sit in silence, to face the void of yourself without flinching. Only then will you discover that you are always complete. Love may come, approval may come, but you will no longer need them. And when you no longer need them, you are finally free to receive them without chains. This is the transformation, to kill dependence without killing desire, to walk alone without rejecting connection, to hold power without flaunting it, to live in silence without fearing it. The man who has done this becomes a force that cannot be explained, only felt. He does not dominate through volume, but through presence. He does not convince through argument, but through certainty. He does not chase, he attracts. He does not explain, he embodies. The untouchable man carries himself differently. His movements are deliberate, his gaze steady, his words measured. He has no need to rush, because he does not believe time is running out. He has no need to prove, because he does not believe he is lacking. He has no need to bend, because he does not believe anyone stands above him. This does not mean arrogance. It means neutrality. He does not see himself as greater than others, nor less. He simply is. And that isness is power. The untouchable man becomes dangerous not because he threatens, but because he cannot be threatened. You cannot control him with promises, because he is not hungry. You cannot frighten him with rejection, because he has embraced it. You cannot shame him with silence, because he wears silence like armor. He is beyond the reach of petty games. And this makes him the most dangerous kind of man, the one who cannot be manipulated. Understand this well. Society thrives on manipulation. Advertisers prey on your insecurities. Leaders prey on your fears. Friends prey on your need for belonging. Lovers prey on your fear of being alone. All of civilization is built on the assumption that you can be moved by threat or temptation. But the untouchable man breaks this assumption. He sees through it. He recognizes the hand behind the curtain, pulling the strings. And when he refuses to move, the curtain collapses. The puppet show ends. The stage goes dark. That is why society fears men who are truly free. But freedom has its cost. To become untouchable, you must die many small deaths. The death of the boy who sought approval. The death of the servant who apologized for existing. The death of the lover who begged to be chosen. The death of the worker who measured himself by his boss's praise. You will bury these selves one by one, and each burial will hurt. It will feel like losing everything. But in truth, you are losing nothing. You are losing illusions. You are losing chains. You are losing lies. And in their place, you are gaining yourself. The final test is solitude. Not the loneliness of longing, but the solitude of sovereignty. Can you sit in silence without distraction? Can you walk alone without craving footsteps behind you? Can you hold your ground without applause? If you can, then you are no longer bound to the herd. You may walk among them, but you are not one of them. You may be admired, envied, even hated, but you will not be owned. Solitude is the crucible of sovereignty. It is where dependence dies and presence is born. The untouchable man does not isolate forever. He returns to the world, but he returns differently. He no longer enters rooms with need, but with offering. He no longer seeks, he gives. He no longer clings, he chooses. He can love, but his love is free. He can lead, but his leadership is not born of hunger. He can speak, but his words are not to be heard. They are because they are true. And people feel this. They feel the absence of desperation, and they are drawn to it like fire in the cold. It is important to know that this path will cost you things you thought you could not lose. Friends will fall away, lovers will vanish, opportunities will dissolve. You will be called arrogant, cold, ruthless, even cruel. You will be misunderstood, slandered, resisted. But these are the shadows of transformation. You must let them come. You must let the weak fall away, for only then can the strong remain. You will discover that what you lose was never meant to stay. And what stays was never capable of being lost. At the end of this path, you will find something rare, peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of sovereignty. You will know that you can endure rejection, loss, misunderstanding, solitude, and remain whole. You will know that nothing external can grant you worth, and nothing external can strip it away. You will walk through the world untouchable, not because the world no longer touches you, but because its touch no longer defines you. Most men will never reach this state. They will live and die as servants of approval, prisoners of fear, slaves to noise. They will be remembered, if at all, as shadows that passed quietly, never disturbing the order, never breaking free. But you have the choice. You can step into fire. You can embrace rejection. You can endure solitude. You can kill the servant and birth the master. And if you do, you will not need to announce it. The world will feel it. They will sense the gravity around you, the silence that bends the air, the certainty that shakes their illusions. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for signs. Do not wait for others to understand. Begin now. With every word you do not dilute, with every truth you do not soften, with every silence you do not break, with every rejection you do not fear. These small acts carve the path, and step by step, rejection by rejection, silence by silence, you will find yourself standing taller, speaking deeper, moving slower, existing heavier. Until one day you realize, you are no longer asking to be chosen. You are no longer apologizing for being. You are no longer bending to survive. You are sovereign. You are untouchable. And when that day comes, you will look back on the man you once were, the servant who begged, the shadow who bent, the voice that trembled, and you will barely recognize him. He will seem like a ghost you once carried, and you will feel both sorrow for his weakness and gratitude for his sacrifice. For without his death, you could not have been born. This is the end of the path, not the end of struggle, for struggle never ends. Not the end of pain, for pain is eternal. But the end of dependence, the end of weakness, the end of chains. From here, you walk not as a servant, but as a sovereign. Not as an echo, but as a voice. Not as a shadow, but as a source of light. The world will resist you. The world will reject you. The world will misunderstand you. Let it, for you no longer belong to the world. You belong to yourself. And that is the only freedom worth having.